Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Tech4Good session. Before we get into the panel and before I introduce you to our panelists here, just would like to say a few words. The current global crisis has created a new paradigm shift in the way we adopt technology like never before. And the past couple of years especially have been quite disastrous world over, and specifically in countries like India, where the pandemic swung to its peak. However, these waves also come with their own set of opportunities. So just to look at the brighter side, some of the positive outcomes was the realization that technology can help create rapid change, and definitely the startups around us have leveraged this opportunity to create an impact through innovation. And I think startups are the best counterparts to actually take an uncertainty and turn it into an opportunity and drive it towards success. And that is exactly why we are here today discussing Tech for Good and the catalyst for social transformation in times of crisis. I'm Amrita Gandikota. I represent GINSEP in India. And today we have here with us on the panel 4 leaders who in their own diverse ways have acted as catalysts to drive Tech for Good innovations, especially in an Indo-German context as well. Firstly, we have Mr. Gurjit Singh. He was the former ambassador to Germany, Indonesia, and ASEAN, also to Ethiopia and the African Union. He is also a GINSEP ambassador. We also have another GINSEP ambassador, Flo Oberhofer, who is the founder and director of Bharat Impact. And from a corporate perspective, we have Mr. Rahul Lode. He is the Senior Director of Engineering from SAP Labs. And SAP is also one of the main sponsors of the whole event. And finally, Mr. Shankar Kumar, who is the advisor from GIZ. And here I should specially thank GIZ for supporting us with the panel and bringing Tech for Good to the center stage, and also sponsoring this whole session as such. So I would like to call all our speakers here today as catalysts. Firstly, because they are passionate about Tech for Good. And secondly, or even more important to that, they all have a key role in supporting these Tech for Good innovations. So let me give the floor to the catalysts here today. And I would like to begin with Mr. Gurjit Singh. So you have been very closely involved in this sector, and if I would like to ask you to, in one line, share why Tech for Good is important to you, and at the same time, if you could also share with us a little bit about the Sankalp program, that would be great. Yeah.
Thank you, Amrita, and I'm so happy to be part of such an eminent panel, of which I certainly feel inadequate. Well, Tech for Good attracts me because I am now involved with the impact investment movement. Now, the impact investment movement essentially is where we bring technology, business, and investment all together. That is where you put energy and financial energy into doing good. So when we say doing good, for us, it means implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, which are set by the UN as general good for mankind. You asked me to say a word about the Sankalp Summit. Now, Sankalp Global Summit happens every year around October, November, and we do one for Africa around February. Now, due to the pandemic, these are online, virtual summits. Essentially, this is where about 2,000 entrepreneurs, startup leaders, investors, and bankers, and development finance organizations, everybody comes together to basically say, what good can we do? And if you have a good idea, we'll find you the person to put money in.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Gurjit Singh, and thank you also for very precisely putting in the point. I'm sure the audience will take over on those points. And I also request the panelists, if you're comfortable, to please share your emails on the Zoom here, which we could also share it with our counterparts on the platform. And At this point, let me now go to Shankar. Shankar, you're in a very special position here of having a strong bilateral connection with both Germany and India, also resonating the mandate of GINSEP. We also have a mandate of supporting the ecosystem, startup ecosystems between both countries. So could you please share with us what is your specific interest in promoting startups and also perhaps promoting tech for good startups? Yeah.
Thanks, Amrita, and my greetings to all the eminent panelists. And in a very concise manner, Gurjit ji laid down the, tone. Why tech for good? And in India, not only from our professional point of view, from where we come from, but also from our philosophical point of view, it should be good for everyone. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. Everyone should be happy. And because it is a modern era, it's a Kali Yuga, so technology is the main factor. So it should drive us towards good. That's the basic philosophy. But now coming to the point from perspective of GIZ, the German bilateral cooperation, we are a private body, private company, not for profit, but 100% owned by government of Germany. BMZ is our parent ministry. So for us, those of you who understand bilateral cooperation and how these projects work. So this is a project which is agreed between both the governments, Indian counterpart and the German ministry, and then we implement a particular program. So in India, we were running this program with Ministry of MSME on how to strengthen the innovation ecosystem in the country. SMEs are backbone. The small and micro enterprises are backbone in Indian economy. We all know why. And then we were working for them with long, and then we realized that innovation ecosystem in the country needs to be strengthened. And that is the program together German and Indian government we conceptualized with Indian ministry and the German ministry. And we thought to strengthen this movement, we should work on a couple of pillars. So one pillar was that we should strengthen the industry associations. So generally, when we talk about industry associations, a couple of big names comes to our mind. But very few of us know that there are over 4,000, 5,000 smaller associations at cluster level. So when we were strengthening, so we worked a lot with these smaller level cluster associations, BMOs or industry associations. Second pillar was, strengthening this industry and academia ties, because we believe that often research remains within the four wall of academia, doesn't reach the SME, which is, which has a factory unit outside there. And third was, of course, because it's a bilateral policy matters of supporting government in coming up with new policy, with new schemes, improving their schemes, that policy part. And fourth was, how do we strengthen the startup and incubation ecosystem in the country? Because in India, suddenly the last 7-8 years, we all know who have been in this sector, the numbers have grown up. We are now 700 or 800 incubators working there. But often many of these incubators are not to that level. There are top few creamy layer, and then there is a big middle base and a big, So this was the mandate we got from both the government. To strengthen the innovation ecosystem was the larger mandate. Under it, one very strong pillar that how do we strengthen our incubators? Because we generally work at the ecosystem level, not directly with the startup. So we go to startup via these incubators, via either associations or academia or incubators. So this is where I get my mandate from working on this topic.
Great. I think you touched upon a very interesting point of these enablers or incubators in between. So perhaps you could also check out our program tomorrow, because it's completely focused on corporate accelerators, incubators, and other enablers, which could be an access point for startups for you. And also great of you to remind us, taking back to the points of academia and SMEs, which are definitely a strong pillar between Indo-German cooperation. So with that, going to the next step of corporates, let me go to Rahul here. And Rahul, if you could please share with us in a couple of sentences, what is that one thing that makes an innovation tech for good? Also from a technical standpoint, if you could let us know a little bit on that.
Yep. Thank you so much. Firstly, warm welcome to all our I think panelists. Also, I'm really honored to be part of such a great panel discussion here. Yeah, my fellow panelists. I mean, never been so we have been working in technology for so long, but working with social impact and looking at the different aspects is really make us more humble, I would say. From a corporate point of view, there are multiple factors to the technology and innovation when it comes how it's impacting onto the the social aspects of it. And I would say I'm fortunate enough to work on some of these aspects. Especially when COVID hit us, right? And there have been a lot of chaos initially, everyone trying to figure out what we can do, how we can contribute well, or there are not many things were available. And that's time when we started exploring the technology in a different ways to see that since there is not too much of data available from the past times about how this pandemic could span across, but whatever data we had available, the little data available, we collaborated with the Indian Institute of Science, and we built something called as epidemic simulator, which used for predicting how the spread of the virus could happen and help in making the the ecosystem work around that and pandemic to span across. It was quite effective to give the quite proceedings there, but the pandemic had much more worsen, and then the prediction went more accurate, I would say, as and when it went on there. So we tried to leverage that part of it. Even in Germany, the SAP been prominently working on these aspects to ensure all our innovation, how we can support, so how they could bring up all the German citizens back to Germany, and over a very short period of time, there was a portal put in place which make it happen for everyone to work on. And I think in the record time of a week time, that I think people could have called back. So such a kind of collaboration would have not possible unless the technology would not have exist there. The other, I think, innovation part as well as the technology is concerned, we have been also working and supporting the Startup Studio. So I think Startup Studio is one of our I would say, flagship initiative at the moment. We have been doing that since 2016. We had worked about I would say 51 early growth stage startup, with the 40 startup been completed their co-innovation with SAP, and the 15 successful customer engagement resulting to kind of influence the revenue of about 1 million euros for the startups, as a total of about 135 million USD has been raised via the startup initiative, at the tier 1 early stage, which is kind of facilitated by SAP. So we also have a nice startup studio, and we have annual event for SAP. So I also urge many startups part of social responsibility could come and join there as such. So that's why I look at how the socially innovation can be bring in place.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit from the corporate perspective. I think we will also go a little more deeper about SAP Startup Studio, and also perhaps a couple of examples from there a little later in the panel. And I will now give the floor to Flo, and after that there is also poll question coming up for the audience, because we should not forget the audience, and it would be great to have their perspectives as well included into the panel. So coming to you, Flo, firstly, thank you so much for being here and your consistent support of GINSEP since the inception of GINSEP. So very quickly, could you share in one line how to motivate or incentivize founders into developing Tech4Good solutions, which would then, after this question, maybe we can go a little deeper into other aspects that we are talking about. Yeah. So in one line, how to motivate or incentivize founders into developing Tech4Good.
Thanks a lot, Amrita. Namaskar to our audience, or to my fellow panelists. Like, I'm very honored to be here today with you. And since you asked for one line, I'll give you exactly one line, which I got out of the work, obviously, we are doing across India, but now specifically also here in Meghalaya, where I'm sitting here at the moment in Shillong, developing the entrepreneurship ecosystem of the state, like in close collaboration with the government. And the one thing that, we felt, will help incentivize, or the two things that we felt will help incentivize the rollout deployment of Tech4Good is basically enabling access to these implementation and pilot program partners. So really helping whoever is developing the tech to get it on the ground. And second thing, access to patient capital. That means basically capital that is not, even impact capital is not patient capital in most senses. So really to capital that, you know, is not expecting the returns you would expect from a regular investment. So from my perspective, or from the learnings that we've made over the last couple of years, these would be key areas, you know, that would incentivize founders.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing into the aspect of impact capital. And please hold on that thought, because now let's go to the poll question. I think if we could release the poll now quickly for the audience, just take a few seconds to answer the poll, and then the results would be showed up on the screen. So let's have the poll now. So the question is, where do you think is the maximum impact of Tech for Good needed post the pandemic? And we have 4 options here. One is health tech, financial inclusion, fintech, edutech, and climate change. So I see the poll is already live, and some of the counterparts are already responding to the poll. And maybe we can stop the poll now and have the results. Just a moment, the results are coming in. Okay, so I thought before, when I was drafting this question, I thought the answer would be health tech, but almost 50% of the audience has opted for climate change, and the next immediate contender is health tech. And of course, health tech, edutech, and financial inclusion. I think these have been a few sectors which have been drastically influenced by the pandemic and have had major pivotings and paradigm shifts. So perhaps let's hold on to that thought and move on to the next questions. Once again, coming back to the catalysts that we have here in the panel. So Shankar, let me come back to you here. And since you were just mentioning to us about your relevance of working with startups, could you just share with us, especially for the startups that are listening in, what kind of specific programs that you have for the startups, and how can they reach to you, particularly in the Tech for Good sector?
Thanks, Amrita. Before I answer, just reiterating the point that we mostly work with ecosystem players, more at a level higher than with startups. But despite saying that, we have a lot of programs for startups also. So generally, if briefly I say that 3 or 4 major areas in which GIZ is working in this arena is, one is, of course, in this larger capacity building or training component. When ministry reached us, and as you know that in India, number of Ministry of MSME supports around 200 incubators. DST has another 110. Niti Aayog has 84. There are other ministries also, state ministries also. There are 800 to 900 startups incubators that are working. But we all know that the capacities of many of these incubators needs to be enhanced in terms of not only from the incubator manager perspective, but also in the leadership needs to be trained and all. And unless you have a good functioning staff with good incubators, often they are not able to give the right services to the startup. So that is one of the major thing that we are working on, is to enhancing capacities of this incubator managers, their leaders, incubator staff, and helping them to develop a portfolio of service. And this we are doing it in a big way. 100, 200 startups, incubators we have trained, worked across with variety of. We are working right from all the top class incubators like IIMs and IITs to the very tier 2, tier 3 kind of cities, smaller academia. So that is one major component. Second is, we work a lot on developing this knowledge materials and tools. For example, simple handbook for incubator manager, or compendium of schemes, different schemes for startups, or working with partnering with organizations like NASCOM and all, like we did 2 years back, this status of startup and incubator emerging sectors report, or AI as a services, or what can be potential emergence. So these kind of, so that is another area that we do. Third is most important, where our startups can benefit, even those many of the audience working here, is working towards creating networks and connects. Because many of them, these startups who are well, so, and particularly in context of Indo-German connect and networking. For example, we had this 2-3 virtual startup tours, which was a challenge thrown throughout the country, and many of them participated. And we conducted 2 tours. And again, upcoming, there are 2 more tours where we are doing in partnership with again GenSep, Startup India, a couple of other players as well. So where this will be open for everyone. You do apply, it will be live, I think, by end of this month or next month beginning. And we select certain startups, 20, 40, 50 of them, divide them into 2 groups, and they go through extensive virtual tour for 2 weeks for Germany. So it starts from how should be what should be behavior, culture, to it ends up in strengthening their business model and finally pitching in front of investors. So last time when we did, out of 20, 18 of them or 16 of them actually found investors. That was a very lovely, great thing, and even we were quite surprised. So these are the programs. And otherwise, we support different government departments or ministries to hold on, pilot programs or a new program. For example, with Ministry of MSME, we did Ideas for New India Challenge. For over 20,000 people participated, and 110 who were selected are getting up to 15 lakhs of rupees. So these are the variety of programs. In short, if I say, capacity building and training and networking is a major forte. Now, just a line on COVID, because we are talking in context of COVID. So here specifically, since last 2 years, we are working with around 10, 12 incubators, and through them around 60, 70 of the startups who have come up and developed products around COVID, which minimizes the impact of COVID. For example, IIM Calcutta is one of the, or IIT Kanpur, or Lemon Ideas, or JSS. And through them, we are working with these startups and helping them to what Flo was saying, that helping those startups to pilot those products in the field, to operationalize it and to upscale it, and then to connect it to market. So already the startup has developed an idea. It's not that entire idea has come from GIZ project. They had some ideas, so we are helping them to pilot it, upscale it, take it to new folder. So that is also a program. So in terms of audience, I would like to say that do visit our, or maybe we connect after it, and particularly for, or like COVID resilience program. This currently we are doing that. Most of the startups are not equipped. That how do they do it? How should they deal with this? So then on this resilience, this entire resilience, we are developing tools, different tools, so that they can use it doing a study. So these are different programs that we do, primarily focused at a level higher, incubator, accelerator, because we cannot work with all the startups. But definitely when we say that we work with incubators, basically meaning working with also with their startups.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you very much for explicitly putting that out. And it's also very commendable that the programs are end to end, and there is a holistic way of supporting the startups, especially in terms of scale. Because I think in times of, in the current times of pandemic, the biggest support the startup needs is, especially with a startup that is already in its first stages, is to scale, and that is something you're definitely bringing into the context, and with the bilateral connection, also with the scope of some futuristic internationalization as well. So thank you so much for those points. I will go back to Rahul here, because you were talking about with us about how SAP has worked on Tech4Good, and also given us a brief hint into Startup Studio as well. So if you could take that into a little more of detail as to how SAP has shouldered the support of ecosystem during the pandemic, that would be really good, in terms of the portal that you were talking about, and how has it supported the ecosystem, because it's really commendable to see how a large corporate has also taken the has taken the role of Tech4Good in these times. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think one of the important part that we did also during the pandemic, I mean, there was been a lot of chaos around, and looking at especially during the second wave, we got a request from Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, so that but there are a lot of the German citizens or German organizations who are like to support Indian, their counterparts in India or in general in India, and how can we make the platform where someone can because all of us has gone through there during those difficult time, and the oxygen incubators, or if you need to have a number of beds or isolation beds, or ICU beds available somewhere. Also the supply, for that matter, somewhere you needed the mask, or somewhere you need this equipment and all those stuff. And that's a time everyone wanted to support us, right, in India. So we quickly put forward the portal, which is using one of our technology internally. I think it's a matter of we got some request on, I believe, Monday or so, and I think we put by Thursday we were kind of live with the portal available, which is full-fledged collaboration platform. Onboarded about 800 of Indo-German Chamber of Commerce participants there, the registered participant, some of them from Germany, some of them from different countries, but originate companies, across the different continents, I would say there. And there have been a lot of exchange of ideas. So we were not kind of doing anything commercial transactions there. It's more like connecting them, and then they share their contact details, they share what they have, how they can support, and then they take things forward from there. We had very good response on that portal. I would say it was almost very heavy traffic. A lot of queries is come to us, and we also been learned during that process pretty good thing about how these portals and the technology can really connect where there's a needy people, and there the supplies are about. And a lot of things could transfer to a couple of flights came later on from the Germany, and this been those things would be distributed at that point of time. So even within the locally, there are the corporates who wanted to do a lot of CSR stuff, and there are people or other corporates who needed to connect to the social entrepreneurs as well. So I would say that was one of the activity which being pretty successfully driven from SAP. Apart from that, as we are talking about how we support the whole ecosystem around the country to support via the technology. So one of the flagship program that SAP driving since 2016, I believe, is also the Code Unnati, which is quite talked about, and it's kind of a unique program. Got started along with the Niti Aayog at that point of time, especially focused on the underprivileged children, or even the adults who are not exposed to technology, how it can be support to technology. It's via training, which providing them equipment from the technology perspective, or also offering them the jobs, or making this complete ecosystem where SAP also work with a lot of customers within India and around the world. How we can leverage or provide these opportunities to these people that we have trained under this coordinative program. And I would happy to say that so far we had around 1.04 million people who has been kind of benefited out of this program, and it is a huge impact on our society, and we are continuing on this effort. So it's not SAP only doing, but I think if SAP is along with his partner and customer ecosystem pulled into this effort, and we are taking it forward. So I think this is another way that how we can able to provide employment to the areas which are maybe those people might not have seen the computer, they are not got to the literacy where they could actually code, or it's a basic skills, the Excel or PowerPoint or Word and all those things, but they are today employable in a respectable job, and they're taking forward from their career journey from there. So that's another place where SAP been quite effectively volunteering to how the technology can support to the larger aspect. One more maybe quick thing that we also volunteered with the building the artificial intelligence based module. So many of you know the Adult Tinkering Lab ATL under Niti Aayog, which something which driven by Niti Aayog's Flagship program. So we've been authoring the lot of content for the children, and this go to all the government children for AI, machine learning, and also adopting the many ATL labs also across the India. So we are one of the key sponsors to the ATL lab, where we adopt the lab and then provide equipment as well as provide the training to them. So a lot of things been happening that time, and I think that's the best part of the being technologists, you could support community as well.
Great. Thank you so much for giving 3 concrete examples as to how you are driving Tech for Good internally. And I think these are both, these are some points which could definitely organically move to the next points, which I want to talk to Mr. Gurjit Singh and to Flo. So maybe I'll first reach to Mr. Gurjit Singh. So you, when we both had spoken earlier, so you mentioned about how SDGs and Tech for Good go hand in hand. So if you could share with us on how to implement Tech for Good innovations by fulfilling SDGs and also bringing in the context of procuring investments and moving from philanthropy. So you had some interesting points to share on this concept. So please let us know on that.
Thank you. So I'm most impressed with all the 3 panelists and what they have done. I'm surprised that actually Flo is sitting in Shillong. So let me just address a little bit what each of them say with respect to the impact investment. So Flo, yes, impact funds go to larger companies, but we have a subsidiary microfinance organization which touches the smaller people. So in terms of sheer numbers, the microfinance takes care. In terms of larger investments, we go with the impact. Regarding the GIZ, most interesting what you do. And I'm happy to say that in the largest investors into the impact investment funds of Avishkar are your colleagues, FMO of Holland, the DFID, the USAID. They are actually now moving away from grants into saying, let's put money and let the Indian company handle it. And maybe we will get a return, but certainly you'll get impact. They are not interested so much in the return, but it helps them to recycle financing and they get good impact. And what you said, Mr. Lode, about the studio. Now, there is a gap between startups incubation, both you and Mr. Shankar mentioned, and the impact investment move. So this time, as Sankalp, along with GINSEP, we are actually trying to do a bridging event where we are bringing Indian and German startups together, provided their approach is towards the SDGs. That good must come. And then we are trying to see what kind of brainstorming can we do. So basically, if the startup grows, the impact investment fund could be available for their pursuit. Now, I'm very happy to see the results of your poll, Amrita, because where the impact investment is concerned, actually much of it goes into climate change related. The health sector actually gets the least because it is the most difficult to scale up and commercialize. I was in Germany 2 years ago, working with a lot of German startups in the health sector. It was very difficult at the price level they had to bring them to India and India. But let me give you 2 concrete examples of dealing with climate change, where impact investment seems to be working. One is this company in Indore. I teach in Indore, so I have to go there. Now, this company has a contract with the Indore municipality, and the municipality collects all the waste. So the non-organic, the inorganic waste, dry waste, is all sold to this company. It's called NEPRA. And they take the stuff and they, through huge machines, that's technology, they separate it, the wood, cloth, metal, paper, all separately taken out and recycled. But most importantly, they recycle plastic into 18 different categories and then recycle them back to industry. So here they are sorting out the waste problem of the city and providing industry with raw material at low. Another company which I can tell you, North India suffers from deep smog, especially in winter. This is because the farmers in North India are burning crop residues, which are, they don't pull them out, they burn them. Now we have a company, Prespel. It's basically dealing with renewable energy, but not only bioenergy, they are now entering the bio supply chain. So what they do is they have these machines which can pull out the biomass. And they go to the farmer and say, I'll pay you this much per kilo. You let me take it out for you, don't burn it. Then they collect all this biomass and they have contracts with industries where this is burnt in controlled conditions to provide steam energy. So having succeeded in Punjab, They are going to Goa and Karnataka to use other local crops. So they are basically setting up a bio supply chain, which will lead to biomass energy being provided. Now, this helps the farmer, it helps the pollution, it helps things, but ideas come up. Now, I agree that these were good ideas. I don't know whether they came out of a startup or not, but what I have seen, many startups come with such good ideas. Then they don't know how to convert it to a business. And that is where impact investment. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, and you stopped on a very pertinent note about impact investments, and this is exactly where I would like to bring Flo in. And also, Mr. Gurjit Singh, thank you so much for building a story between all the three panelists. I think that once again reiterated the points that we are talking today. So, Flo, when I was speaking to you earlier, you very passionately explained to me the need for Tech4Good innovation that is viable on a grassroots level, and also taking away from the points which Rahul spoke from SAP about, these implementative technologies. Could you please share with us your experience of on-ground implementation of Tech4Good innovations, especially at a grassroots level? And you had some amazing points earlier, so please feel free to share with us on that.
Okay, thanks, Amrita. So, see, like the first point is like, what is the definition of Tech4Good? I think that is something that could probably fill a complete webinar again. I mean, my experience, the one I'm sharing now, is only related to entrepreneurship development, rural development, as well as environment and sustainability. So these are the things we are basically working in. And I mean, in my daily work, I'm getting confronted by Tech4Good quite a lot, because startups get in touch, or we see startups that work on sustainable topics. Honestly, that there's a lot of good things happening, but at the same time, there's also a lot of over-promising and under-delivering happening at this point in time by startups. So, at the moment, we have these hype topics like AI, blockchain, and everything, which, I feel have not really arrived in this Tech4Good sector. And the question is, will they ever arrive also for me? So the question is, what is the barrier? Why are they not coming in? So many people who get active in this Tech4Good sector now, they have and also investors, they have the perception that, okay, we come up with the best technologies, we have come in with the brightest technologies that will solve all issues out there. But there's one big thing that we basically many neglect, is that we are working with humans here. Mm-hmm. And specifically, if I talk about rural development, also entrepreneurship development, I mean, I can speak here for Meghalaya. We have a very, very nascent entrepreneurship ecosystem here. So change takes time, and mindset change specifically takes a lot more time. So this is what we are very strongly focused on, imbibing this mindset change. And for me, this is a core component that might be not so tangible, but it's one of the core components to make Tech4Good viable, to make Tech4Good successful, right? And I mean, what I would link this with obviously what I said in my first sentence as well. With this mindset change, you need trustworthy partners on the ground, right? Because these people, be it NGOs, be it SHGs, be it startups that are already active here for a long time. So if you want to get Tech4Good on the ground, you need to have people who already have the trust of the local population. Again, it's in the context of rural development, entrepreneurship, ecosystem development in, like a state like Meghalaya. So it takes time. It takes time, and it takes people that really have gained the trust. And that is a major barrier that people can only overcome once they understand that, this is a factor, which many people that work in these overhyped sectors often neglect. And a lot of, money is poured in these sectors. But, if you just think about logically that, if you expect a small scale farmer to adopt some kind of technology, a small scale farmer that might earn like 6,000 rupees a year, 70 euros a year, that he will put even like a single rupee into some kind of technologies that might even take a while to deliver some results, like, that's living in another world that's very far away from on-ground realities. So these are, the barriers that I'm having. And, like obviously I got a lot of good stuff is ongoing, but, I see it for me also as a mission to share, what is what we're encountering on a daily basis on the ground. It's not as easy, to get there. So there's a lot of good things. For example, telemedicine startups, obviously very beneficial, but again, they only arrive on the ground and give benefit on the ground if you have someone there that can actually show and deploy it on the ground, right? So I ever, for example, worked with one startup in Germany. We're just helping them to get into the Indian market. That's called Ferrosense. So they have developed a device with which you can measure iron deficiency anemia in the lower lip. You basically have a sensor. You hold the sensor against the lower lip for 60 seconds. Without taking any blood, the device tells you, is this person iron deficient or not? So this is like a fantastic solution, because many people might not know there's a stigma in rural India specifically. People don't want to get blood pricked, right? So blood tests is mostly ruled out. And we have in India around 40% of prevalence of iron deficiency, so it can have a huge impact. So, and these people also understand that, this device has to be different from what we've developed for Europe, right? So they're adapted to India. They make a version that is very, very specific to the situation here. They understand it has to be mobile. People have to be able to carry it out there. It's okay if it falls down a couple of times also. It has to fit onto a motorbike. All these things, they understand, right? There's a use case for it. But then there's also things which are very hyped, like, for example, drones for medicine delivery, right? There's no real use case for it. It sounds very fantastic, and sounds like it would give a fantastic impact, but there's literally no economic use case to it if it's not supported by governments or whatever. And like that, we have many. We have, for example, Arm Digital, which is like a great startup founded also by a German who has lived in Kolkata for a long time. And he was working there for an NGO. So he was always struggling how to document the interaction with the beneficiaries, all these things. So now he's developing with his team a solution that is basically allowing the on-ground staff to track, the interactions with the beneficiaries, whether the children attend school, all these kind of things, right? Whether these families are active, and so on and so on. Even I have another startup that's called Miracle Forests. So we are basically promoting the concept of food forests that's based on permaculture, right? So it will give healthy food, it will recover soil, improve the water situation. So we want to infuse some technology, but technology is not everything for us. So for us, it's important that, the concept is there, and the technology that we infuse is, for example, CO2 sequestration tracking, biodiversity tracking, all these kind of things we can infuse, but it's not the main topic. And like that, we have many, many examples that are working well, but in the end, the one thing, that I want to conclude this also is, Gurujit had given a lot of wonderful examples of startups he has encountered, or businesses he encountered in the for good sector. So one thing I think we all undervalue is frugal innovation in the end, right? These small improvements, like, in Meghalaya, food processing is our main line of business and the biggest perspective we have for the state. So if we can have frugal innovation, be it from academia or from improvements from existing technologies, this is going to make a huge difference in the end. And this is what we want to support. And I think we all need to value and appreciate these kind of innovations more.
Great. Thanks, Flo. And I think quite a few members of the audience are also resonating to what you're saying, and also to what the previous panelists have been saying. Some are saying social change needs to be at the heart of any transformation, and of course that it takes a lot of time when the results are not tangible, and of course not going for an immediate impact. So I think now we are already going to the end of the panel. Let me just take these audience questions quickly and pan them out to you, and then we can have some final remarks, and then we will be closing the panels. So one question that has come up, perhaps, one question is: are there any platforms, or are you working with initiatives that help not-for-profit organizations to identify technological gap and help them with tools to bridge the technological gap? So maybe Rahul, would you be able to support that? Because I believe you also are working with the World Economic Forum on this front. Any comment on this, or we could also hear from the other panelists later.
Yeah, so as I just wanted to add there, when Gurjit ji also speaking about the impact and how can we make the connection between these social impacts, the social entrepreneurs who are working on these the impact causes, right? So fortunately, I've been also part of the one of the initiative by World Economic Forum, where SAP is sponsoring as a technology sponsor. The whole idea is that how we can bridge these gaps. So as exactly Flo has mentioned, that there is a huge gap that we see today versus the what exactly social entrepreneur need. It's not always a technology, right? It's also the connection between the right alliance partner who could represent them in the larger forum, and that's way connection to also to the investors, right? Because there are many organizations, many corporates like to connect or invest into the like SAP has their corporate goals being the I think about a certain amount by investing into that, and that's where the many corporates has. But now connecting them to the right place is always a challenge, because there are many platforms right now who are I mean, we have Deal Room, Abaka. Now there are many international platform, Impact Hub, we have Elite Network. So there are many alliance partners also who have been working together to ensure that how we can get this connection seamlessly. So what we are working on the data cluster as a part of the World Economic Forum initiative is to how we can unify these platforms together, how this corporate responsibility, connecting that to the social impacts and the social focus that right now this impact enterprises has at the moment. So kind of unified platform where you could able to just search where you want to invest in, and you should be able to get to see which all the the enterprises, social enterprises are there, which you could go and invest into it. At the same time, even the enterprises can find the investor and the fund which is available via the wave they're looking for. You can trigger the survey out of it. You can access to the larger data sets across there are, I think, more than 200 websites that we researched so far has a fragmented data, and the different place how we can unify them region wise. We can look at the lens, whether you are looking at the racial equity, you're looking at the food security, you're looking at the medical health. We're trying to unify them with kind of a searchable way, which can be very easily connect to both of them. So project is already underway, but yeah, I would more than happy to connect with you also to offline, and then get your perspective to add that into these projects as well. And that's where the technology, I think, would also be help strongly to connection, not to always been there to solve the problem. But I think in this case, as Flo exactly mentioned, the technology is a little far away. We need something to fix at the basic and the ground level, and I think this kind of portals or connection would support here.
Great. Thank you for that. I've also made some notes on this. So as we are coming to the end of the panel, I just would like to have some closing remarks from the other panelists as well. Thank you, Rahul, for giving in your inputs. Perhaps if I could also hear a quick closing line from Shankar, Mr. Gurjit Singh, and Flo, that would be great. Maybe we start with Shankar.
Thanks, Amrita. I think Flo summarized it very well, and from our perspective as well, because this has been our experience working with startups and incubator and this ecosystem. We all know the data. 60, 70, 80% of startups in bigger cities, bigger towns, often you see the same startup hopping between different incubators. There's a different, but in India, when you see such a huge country, such a diverse country, tier 2, tier 3, and as Gurjit Singh ji was saying, a lot of good ideas. We work at Aurangabad or Nasik or Nagpur, lot of good ideas, but they do not know what to do with it, how to develop a business plan with it. And then someone develops a good idea, he collects money, he wants to pilot, but he, as Flo was mentioning, he doesn't have the right connect. Whenever you have this social or anything, that is tech for good, that we typically in the arena of maybe rural development or energy or health. So, these are the major challenges that many of those are facing. And this is where, despite whatever we say about incubators, they play a very, very important role. At least they help many of these startups. For example, when this COVID started and we got some relief fund from the government to promote this new, and initially, yes, many of them startups were coming up with masks or sanitizers or typical 3, 4, 5, 6 items. But when we actually reached out to the smaller towns and cities, we found amazing ideas that came up, and that took us beyond this bigger incubators to this smaller B grade, not B grade I should say, but tier 2 engineering colleges or tier 3 engineering colleges, and there we supported them. So this is a major barrier also, and I feel that good idea needs, and when we see at India as a whole, it should be there in our mindset, how do we take it. And I would urge GenSep also to partner with many of these local players, because you have a good base, but mostly in metros as of now. So maybe if you can partner with many of these regional or local, you will get excellent ideas. And this has been our experience. Some of them were excellent. This is one point. And secondly, I would like to reiterate that what all incubators generally lack, and that is very true for Tech4Good innovations also, that I see very little coordination between ecosystem players as well. So generally it becomes my product, my startup, my idea, my funder. So, and there's no formal system also exists where there's a network or platform where there is an exchange. For example, this is an excellent platform where you share and then it's good, but often there's this mistrust kind of thing. So this co-creation, co-incubation thing is not happening. So these are the two things I would say. Otherwise, I fully agree with Gurjit ji and with Flo also, that if you are talking about tech for good startup, you have to address this behavioral, this mindset thing as well. We have seen several examples where people have developed lovely, you can go garden using hairs, but it never picked up because hair is not a very, culturally it was not suitable, but otherwise it's an excellent product. So, you have several examples. Unless you touch that, that's very much. So those are the, I would say that we should keep in mind.
Yes.
Focus should be on tier 2 for a country like India. Should also be on tier 2. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think even for GenSep as tips, I completely second what you mean of looking for innovative solutions in the tier 2 sides, and also to have a more collaborative ecosystem and not be too competitive about the about contacts or about the initiatives, but be more wholesome and holistic together. Completely, I completely agree with you. Yes, so I think now very quickly let's also move to Flo and Gurjit for some final comments, and then yeah, yes, Mr. Gurjit Singh, please.
Thank you. So I want to say that I absolutely empathize with what Flo says, that you have to get to the bottom of the pyramid. So I'm happy to say that there are, under agri-tech, for instance, we have supported companies which are working really at the bottom level. One company called Ergos, what do? They have set up small warehouses at the farm level, and a farmer can even warehouse 1 bag of grain. And through an app, they are guided to the best price and the best time to sell. But by simply warehousing through the app, they can go to the local bank or NBFC and actually get money to get on with their lives. Now, this is, I'm taking really bottom of the pyramid work. There's another app which works for, let's say, turmeric, and it measures the curcumin content of turmeric, and then tells you, don't sell your turmeric at rock bottom price. You have higher content. This is the certificate. Go and seek a better yield in a better market. This is how it helps farmers. So we are trying to do these things. But having heard all of you, please don't misunderstand me. Philanthropy and grants have their space. But we need to move to investment, because the business plan is what makes them work. And the business plan then doesn't need a grant. It needs investment. So you need to have your skin in the game. So that is where I see startups growing into impact investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for once again putting the point out there. And Flo, once again giving the floor to you. And yeah, please go on.
Thanks, Amrita. I cannot add anything more to the wisdom of Shankarji, Gurjitji, Rahulji. So I'll just have one sentence. I'm hoping that we have many entrepreneurs out there who are working on Tech4Good solutions that are listening in now. specifically, hopefully from abroad as well. The only thing I want to say, come to India, be open, speak to people, speak to NGOs, learn from them. Don't think in silos, but really embrace, the diversity we have here, and, the openness of the people. Don't think business first, money first, but think impact first, and then you're going to have a great experience in India.
Wow, those are some really, really great closing words. And I think with this, we can also close the panel on that note. And some of the key takeaways from me from this session are also that Tech4Good is not, I mean, for me, it was also a learning that Tech4Good is not just for branding or perhaps building karma for companies, but it's a new way of doing business and extremely strategic and smart for corporates as well as startups alike. And definitely implementative technologies are the need of the hour, especially for a country like India. And to bring in the German relevance as well, there seems to be a mega scope for collaboration. And thank you all for driving these points home. And finally, for the audience, for the startups and the enablers listening in, please, whoever are interested in this sector, please reach out to GIZ, SAP/SAP Startup Studio. Check out the Sankalp event coming up, and finally also reach out to Flow for some grassroots implementable Tech4Good innovations. And the details of our panelists are also put up on the chat, so please feel free to reach out to them. So with that, I wrap my session. I really thank all the panelists here today for all their inputs and talking so openly about this topic. And yeah, I hope it was a great learning also for the audience. Now I give the floor back to the studio in Berlin, give the floor to Diksha and Julian. And from my side, I will see you at the networking session at the table. So please stay on for another hour and check out the event. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.